Maybe you wanted at the end of life to show special appreciation to Susie, right? But Johnny comes along after you're gone and contests that and wins, and your wishes are dishonored. So a will is not a guarantee that your wishes will be honored. Hi, friends. This is Colin Richards, and we're back in this segment of the Lord and Richards Show to continue our discussion of what I'm calling financial life planning. We could also call it estate planning, but as we learned in our previous episode, this is really not just about end of life. It's about doing things while you're alive to protect your estate. That is everything you own, not just what you pass on. We think estate planning is what we pass on, but to protect your estate, what you own today and will own in the future, from the marauders, the invaders that could destroy your wealth, both for you and those that you intend to leave it to. And we know that the natural sucking sound that we hear over our lifetime and into the end of life is that this money is going to default to the government, the hospitals, and nursing homes. And if you don't want your money to wind up in one of those three places, then you're going to have to do something about it. But the good news is, although this is work, at Lord and Richards, we're doing this work for you every single day. We've helped thousands of people to not only obtain retirement freedom so that you have a lifestyle of enjoyment, a carefree life, but also to set aside the worry of your assets being destroyed by these three invaders. So the first document that we learned at the end of life, you need to have a document in place called an advanced healthcare directive. Those wishes that you want in place about the amount of care to sustain life. But then secondly, powers of attorney. Who do you want making financial and healthcare decisions about you, right? Not just healthcare, but also financial. This is often overlooked and not updated. If you have one, most of the time what I see is, oh wow, this is out of date. Maybe your ex-wife has power over life and death and financial. Is that what you want, right? So this must be updated, giving this power to someone when you are no longer capable of making those decisions yourself. Think it through very carefully and make sure it is updated. And number three is kind of the big one that everybody thinks, if I've got this in place, I'm good. Now, I'm here to tell you, we need this document, but it is not the way you want most of your assets to pass on, and it's called a last will and testament. You say, well, Colin, I thought the most important thing was to have a will. No, I already said healthcare directives and power of attorneys are more important. A will is important, right? Because we don't want to die without one. But here's the point of a will. It is your voice at probate court or death court. A will means that this is a document that gives you a say in advance at death court that determines what is going to happen to your assets. It has no relevance outside of death court, right? A will, somebody's not going to just pick up your will and say, oh, he wants everything to go here and we'll just, get a truck and cart it over to their child or whatever. The court has to determine that, right? So there is no relevance to a will outside of court. The average cost of going through this process called probate or death court is 2 to 6% of your estate. Wow, that is a huge hit. And it takes, on average, 12 to 18 months. And by the way, there's a holding pattern right at the beginning of several months, as much as 4 months, while your creditors are given the opportunity to stake their claim, right? This goes out in public. Your creditors see it and they say, hey, we have a mortgage that needs paid off or a car payment or whatever. And so this long series of delays goes on and on and on, right? And what we want to do is be private at the end of life, right? We don't want everybody to know everything. When was the last time you brought your statements and passed them around at the bingo game, right? You don't do that. Our culture is that we're very private about our wealth. Do you want the public to be able to see everything that you have and who it's going to? Do you want your children, if you leave something to them, to have others know what was left to them? What are their odds of success if they inherit money and then everybody knows that they've inherited it, right? The pressure is enormous. And here's another thing is wills are contestable. If you've got two children, let's say Johnny and Susie, and Johnny went off to explore his career as a fashion designer in New York, and Susie stayed local, and when you were sick and in need of care, Susie took care of you and Susie supported you. And maybe you wanted at the end of life to show special appreciation to Susie, right? But Johnny comes along after you're gone and contests that and wins, and your wishes are dishonored. So a will is not a guarantee that your wishes will be honored. You say, wow, I didn't know all this stuff. Well, I'm not faulting you for it, but you have the knowledge now, and it's powerful. We need to avoid contestable documents at the end of life. We need to avoid being public. We need to avoid delays in those assets getting where they need to go. We need to avoid the costs of death court. So our job in working together with you is to eliminate the need for this document to the best of our ability. And that's financial life planning or estate planning. But I like financial life because I want you to think about it as a today thing, not a tomorrow thing, because I don't want you to keep kicking this can down the road. Most people I talk to are not prepared. You say, well, then can I just get rid of the will altogether? Can I save a few $100? No. You need this document. Things change, right? What if you make a mistake somewhere along the line and fail to put your assets where they're going to avoid this process we call probate, and they wind up in the tax court instead, and you have no will, right? We do not want to pass away in a state that is called intestate. In 2016, the famous pop singer Prince passed away, and a good portion of the wealth, the $178 million that he left behind, was eaten up and destroyed by probate and taxes. His heirs got a little bit more than half. But isn't that extraordinary? Just with a little planning, he could have made a tremendous difference. So we don't want to die without will and instructions. Otherwise, the state steps in, and the next of kin are just distributed this however the state has predetermined, and you no longer customize. So a will allows you to customize the distribution of your assets at death, anything that winds up there. So we need one. But we just want to avoid having to use it for the vast majority, if not all, of our assets. Not only can you customize the distribution of your assets, but it's important that you have an executor. This is taken care of, right, through the will. Who wants this job, though, right? So you may want to think about that. Who is going to take on this burden? Are you going to make their life easy, or are you going to make their life hard? In our next segment, we're going to talk about how to make their life easy, right? It also addresses guardianship issues if you leave behind children or those with disabilities. It directs your charitable intents, and it directs your burial intents. Do you want a fancy funeral? Do you want a pine box? Do you want other types of burial instructions? So a will is very, very important. But in this next segment, we're going to talk about what are your lines of defense to avoid your money going to probate, costing valuable time and money that could otherwise go to better uses. In the meantime, I'd like you to pick up the phone and give us a call, because we would love to have a conversation with you about how you can avoid these and many other pitfalls in your financial planning. It just starts with a simple call.